This programming was made possible by the generous support of the North Carolina Community Foundation Disaster Relief Fund in partnership with the North Carolina Local News Lab Fund.
We've definitely seen flooding before, but that was definitely vicious.
With memories of Hurricane Florence still fresh, eastern North Carolina counties activate for Hurricane Dorian. But how are they preparing in the midst of rebuilding? This is Before the Storm. In 2018, Hurricane Florence smashed Craven County with a storm surge unlike anything locals had seen in over 60 years. As Dorian approaches, county leaders are taking new steps to get ready. Let's examine how our emergency management leaders are building its Hurricane Dorian Command Center.
You're in the Emergency Operations Center here in Craven County. We're in downtown New Bern. This is what we call the war room or the bunker. When we come in here, we're planning for any type of natural disaster, but of course you're here today, we're talking about Hurricane Dorian.
What happens in this room? There's lots of chairs and a few computers, a half dozen or so.
So basically during a storm, we bring in all the elements of county government that need to be working during an emergency. During Hurricane Florence, we had roughly 100 people in here. We also have the opportunity to bring our partners in, whether it's the Red Cross, our municipal partners like City of New Bern, who you guys have taught with, City of Havelock, and also the state of North Carolina, who have a lot of resources they're able to bring to us during a disaster. So,
what role does media play? I see you have the Weather Channel up, but you also have official-looking radars.
Right.
How much of this is real information? How much of this is you folks are just like we are and just want to know where that storm is and want more information?
We're like you, but we have a couple extra tools that you may not have at home. But Weather Channel, always a good source, local media, national media, we're following it. We want to see what's happening in other places. The main screen here, this is a system that we have called HurrAvac. It's a nationwide system. It gives us the best modeling, and it'll show us kind of the projected path moving forward using the best guidance that we have. And then finally, we've got some real active radar. I mean, this one changes a good bit, but it lets us know what the conditions actually are.
What's a day like here? Once this storm is right on us, 24 hours, do you go to bed?
No, sir. What we do is we prepare for the worst and hope for the best in this room. We have a team of call takers in here who can triage any type of situation we might find from one of our citizens. Well, I don't want to discourage anybody from calling, because every question is important they have during a natural disaster. But we ask them to go ahead and make those preparations now. There are things they should be doing today, tomorrow, before the winds get up. But any question about if they feel that their life's at jeopardy or they're at risk, we want them to call. We want to be able to try to triage and figure out what we can do to help them.
Our infrastructure has been holding up fairly well. Our biggest thing is to make sure we don't have a lot of flooding that cuts off the main transportation corridors for long periods of time, so that commodities can be resupplied, stores can get fuel, groceries, things of that nature. That's the quickest part of the recovery process. We keep trying to improve on what our resources are and logistics that we can deal with some of the individual incidents. But again, you got to understand storms, by the virtue of the nature of the beast, can impact situations that you can't be prepared for, except get out of the way and stay safe and hunker down and start the recovery process. You can't always beat the storm.
Craven County is one of North Carolina's original counties, and it's home to colonial-era documents cherished by researchers worldwide. Let's examine how workers are racing to protect those records from any potential hurricane damage. What don't North Carolinians understand about the value of a Register of Deeds office in these old colonial towns?
A lot of people don't realize that New Bern was the colonial capital of North Carolina. We were the first capital of North Carolina. There are records in here from that time.
And it's much older of a town and county than other counties in North Carolina.
A lot of counties, and I don't have the list right with me, came from Craven County. Craven County was a much bigger county, and different counties broke off from Craven. So we have records from back in the day that actually now would be in other counties, but they were Craven County at that time.
Original documents.
Original documents.
How popular is this office for genealogists, for historians?
Tremendously popular, but so much of our things are online now that a lot of them don't come in. They can do it from sitting in their living room.
So Why is it important then to worry too much about the paper when we have a digital copy that in theory can never be erased or deleted?
We do, but you know, we're only human. Those digital copies, as much as we hope they're perfect, they may not be. And people like to come in here and just see the real record. It's not like looking at pictures of what's in archives in Raleigh. You can see it here.
200-year-old documents.
Yeah.
Signed by the colonial governors.
Sure. Yeah.
So it's like a time machine.
It is a
in
time
here.
machine. It is a time machine.
Well, you're up against the clock
Yes.
this week.
Right.
What has to be done?
All of these records, all of these books will be lifted from a certain point, and we have to make the decision on what point that will be. They will all be put on these counters. Everything will come up so that if water comes in, it can't touch these records.
The flooding caused by 2018's Hurricane Florence surprised many downtown New Bern business owners. With some of their buildings still undergoing renovation, the downtown business community is bracing for the potential of more floods. The devastating damage of 2018's Hurricane Florence is still fresh in the minds of many downtown New Bern business owners.
Like up until last year, I never really stressed about a hurricane because, I mean, there's some wind, some rain. I mean, obviously there's damage and there's harm and stuff, but that was definitely vicious.
A few blocks away, the threat of Florence forced Mitchell's Hardware to board its windows for the first time in 30 years.
I think we were just all really nervous, but at the same time we felt comforted by all of our neighbors because I had literally strangers coming and helping us board up our windows.
The iconic hardware store received a few inches of flooding during Florence, but were able to open the next day and provide help for those trying to recover.
We were either here for tarps and dust masks or we were here for hugs. I mean, literally some people came in just to buy a flower or, you know, a hand towel because they didn't have a front porch, but they wanted to put a flower out. And I mean, just being there for our community was just something that we needed to do.
For many downtown New Bern business owners, the reminiscing has turned to preparing as Dorian approaches the North Carolina coast.
This year we are hopeful that it won't be as bad, but I think everyone is saying better safe than sorry. So we've had people in already for batteries and tarps and gas cans because you just never know what's going to happen until it does. If the hurricane is moving quickly and it is still a 2 or less, we're probably not going to board up, but we're still going to put sandbags and insulation around our doors. And we know we're going to get the wind and the rain. We're just hoping that we don't get the flooding this year.
If this hurricane ends up being devastating, then I know a few people that have already told me they'll move out of New Bern if this is as bad as the last one.
We're very concerned, taking this one very serious. We are very proactive. We've got mutual aid and resources ready for this one, whatever happens.
What are you doing differently this time from Florence, from Michael, going back the last 4 or 5 years?
We just want to make sure that our citizens are safe. I think one thing very important, we want to make sure our first responders and our employees are safe. We want to make sure that we do the proactive things to alert people to the concerns, whether it be a voluntary or a mandatory evacuation, and to get people ready, to get the resources ready, to, if they do need to move out, particularly the low-lying areas. We do not want our police and firemen going in 50-mile-an-hour winds with lines energized and down. We don't want our employees in harm's way.
How informed do you think your residents are to that message?
Well, we've done, in the last couple of years, our PEG channel, Public Educational Governmental Channel, and certainly our communications, our Public Information Officer, and just working with the TV stations, our Emergency Operations Center, both on the county and city level, Code Red. We feel like we pretty well are making our citizens aware of things, along with Facebook.
As a mayor, walk me through a week where you see the storm down in Florida and it may turn and head up this way. You do what?
So right now the big question is when you open a shelter, you close the school down. And our schools were out for like 3 weeks last time. And so we want our children in school. So we have to make that decision along with the county and the school system as to if a shelter opens, a school is going to close.
You made national headlines in 2018 with Hurricane Florence because it was flooded, it was damaged, New Bern was not in good shape. You just mentioned the schools. How well recovered is this city from that event as we stare down the path of Dorian?
A lot of things have recovered, but a lot of things have not. Our units of housing, affordable housing is probably 300 units shy right now. Our low-lying areas, again, the resiliency plan that we are implementing, we're kind of using the Charleston plan. So we have a lot of homework to do. We are cooperating, and particularly with the city of Wilmington and Surf City, we've been to Washington, D.C., met with FEMA, Board of Transportation, Board of Education, HUD. And so long-term, we got to get Highway I-40 to quit flooding.
How do you measure success when a storm either passes through or passes by? How will you know your town and its people did what they were supposed to do?
No loss of life, and everybody cooperates and stays tuned in to our PEG channel, our Facebook page, our Code Red, and just we virtually have policemen and firemen going door to door, alerting citizens, and we take recreational buses, we coordinate with the National Guard, we have the National Guard trucks in, so we will get people evacuated if it comes to that.
Hurricane Florence swelled the Trent River in Jones County, North Carolina, to a record level that devastated the small town of Pollocksville. The hope is Dorian will be a short-term worry as Pollocksville residents and leaders face a long-term recovery.
I'll see you.
In Pollocksville, North Carolina, Mayor Jay Bender knows there's plenty of work left to do to rebuild from 2018's hurricane season.
I think they feel that there is light at the end of the tunnel. They are coming back. As so many people are rebuilding or repairing. It gets depressing to go by and see some houses that have not been fixed, that the grass is entirely too high.
After Florence, Mayor Bender says many of his town's homes and most every business was underwater for days. The town flooding caused many to relocate, including the town hall and the post office. They now share an old, formerly empty pharmacy building.
We have gotten a lot of attention. We've just had a ton of outpouring of support from all of these various church groups and civic groups and people just donating money and time to help people get back in their home.
And this is a pantry.
Mayor Bender says a local charity called the Filling Station has been a main source of this outpouring of support.
It came within 5 feet of our front door, and this place did not flood. There we go.
The Filling Station team says it immediately went into recovery mode after the storm and served about 10,000 families who drove from counties throughout eastern North Carolina.
Periodically we get meat.
But now, Pollocksville has to push pause on the rebuild as their focus shifts to Dorian.
We are prepared, but a lot of these people went through a wet hell a year ago, and they're seeing that come again. And a lot of people, you have to go, look, it's going to be okay. You're going to be okay. You've got people watching out for you. We're going to be okay. We're going to get by. And don't worry about it. If the storm comes and we have to do it again, we have experience now. We know how to do it. And that we're set up to start that. It's to go on from there.
Recovery's slow in Jones County, it seems.
Well, it's slow everywhere. I was talking with someone today, and they're in the process of rebuilding a home or making plans to rebuild a home, but they can't get a contractor who will do it at what they think is a reasonable price because it's a contractor's market out there. You know, people can pretty much name their price. They're not price gouging, but they don't have to build a house at $125 a square foot when they can easily get $250.
How on the radar is Pollocksville and its needs in the aftermath of Florence, but here with Dorian knocking on our door?
Someone asked me the other day, how are we preparing? And I said, well, there's not a whole lot to prepare other than to make sure our utility services work. We have our own water system, we have our own sewer system, and they were damaged in Florence. They've been repaired. My comment has always been that if the water runs and the toilets flush, you can put up with a lot of other challenges. And so we'll be able to do that. There's just not really a whole lot to do. We would have boarded up our town offices and everything, but they were damaged with Florence, and so that's not an issue. So it's just a matter of riding it out, making sure that everything's ready to go and make sure that the folks are safe.
So your permanent town hall is still closed from Hurricane
absolutely,
Florence?
yes. Yeah.
How much of this town is still, for lack of a better term, still underwater and needing recovery?
Oh gosh, we had a fair number of rental properties, and so the owners have decided not to repair those, and so I can think of probably 8 or 10 structures that may not even be repaired at all. They may be a part of the FEMA buyout program. The positive thing is we've had a lot of folks come back. We've had more folks coming back than I thought. They've rebuilt their homes. Some of them are in their homes. Some of them are in there kind of halfway, but they're not living in a FEMA trailer anymore.
Do future storms now worry you a bit?
Sure, they really do. I'm an old historian by education, and I know we had a flood into the town in 1908, and then we had one in 1954, and then we had one in 1999. That's 45 years apart. Now, I was here for the 99 one, here for the 54 one, but just a kid. I'd always said that I'm going to go on the 45-year rule, and so I won't have to worry about anything about Hurricane Floyd. Who would have known that 19 years later we would have something worse with Hurricane Florence? We got 15 feet of water in town in Hurricane Floyd. We got 21 feet of water in Hurricane Florence.
In Brunswick County, emergency management teams were rushing this week to establish storm shelters ahead of Dorian. Let's look at what it takes to convert a school into a safe place for storm evacuees.
Last year, and at this shelter, we had several hundred people here. We'll have meals for people when they come in at different, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and basically just the basics. It's just an emergency shelter, so we have some blankets and necessities, but it's mainly people need. There's some list of things that people should bring, but we'll have the basics here. I'm sure everybody does not want to stay at shelter, so it's not always overly comfortable. We try to do the best we can to make it comfortable. I think people appreciate it, but people are going through a lot because they don't know what's going on at their house, and that causes a lot of stress. Right now we're setting up cots so that the people have a place to sleep. We're also bringing in different supplies so that we can run the shelter. There's some food coming in, but that'll come in later. But we're basically just setting the basics up so that when we open it, we'll be ready to go. Right now about 50. But we may need more. We have more to set up, but we have about 50 set up just to start.
It's not good at all. There you go.
So we have different shifts that people come in. So we have shifts already set up at the different shelters of different Department of Social Services staff, and they'll come in and run the shelter on different shifts. Sometimes they're 24 hours, 48 hours, just depends. They work really hard. Last year the issue was it took so long for the storm to go through, and we had a lot of people at all the shelters we had. Hopefully, if it goes through quickly, we'll be able to do the shelter and then close it down fairly quickly. It really just depends on the impact of the storm. So our staff, the staff that man the shelter, like I said, they'll be here maybe 24, 48 hours, and they don't know what's going on in their homes either. And then we also have to continue to do our other job when we open the agency. So there's a lot of stress overall for everybody. I will be ready. I'm sure everybody will be. We've been preparing for it the last several days, but everybody will be ready when it's done.
This programming was made possible by the generous support of the North Carolina Community Foundation Disaster Relief Fund in partnership with the North Carolina Local News Lab Fund.
North Carolina Channel is made possible by the financial contributions of viewers like you who support the UNC TV network.